and welcome to CFTV News Break. Chief Louise Hillier and Councillor Lonnie Dodge from Caldwell First Nations received a donation Tuesday, June the 21st from the Leamington branch of the TD Bank towards the rejuvenation of the Spirit Powwow. And on Monday night's Leamington Town Council meeting, MPP Rick Nichols delivered a report from Queen's Park.
But on a more serious note, I would like to chat with you briefly tonight about natural gas and what's going on, as I'm sure many people have heard. Also want to talk about the two community safety bills that I've put forward, which have received second reading approval. The ORPP, which as you know affects a lot of small businesses. The recent cabinet shuffle, the Ministry of Health successes that I've had in the Leamington area. Talk a little bit about the Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs Ministry, as well as the Environment and Climate Change Ministry. I want to talk briefly about the new Minister of Energy. Touch on some of the municipal affairs, and now the municipal oversight by the Ombudsman, and lastly, municipal legislation. So moving right along, I'd like to talk just briefly about natural gas for a moment. As you may have heard, and I'm more than willing to conduct a town hall meeting rather, here in Leamington, as I did in Chatham, with regards to the natural gas challenge that's being brought forth by this current government, then of course that's going to force them to raise their prices. Now that all still has to go before the Ontario Energy Board. Ontarians are already struggling to pay the bills. A net zero home, and that's some of the terminology that they've been using. A net zero home, which means no fossil fuels, will cost up to $150,000 more than an average home, devastating the dreams of homeownership and countless young families. And now, Union Gas says that they have to reevaluate their proposed natural gas expansions. So I, along with the Chatham-Kent Council, have made it clear that Chatham-Kent supports the natural gas industry and relies on the many jobs it provides. Realizing, of course, the head office for Union Gas is in Chatham, whereby it employs about 850 people, but thousands across Ontario, and those are direct jobs. The concern I have is if they have to start cutting back, now all of a sudden you're looking at the indirect jobs as well, because I'm sure that all of us, or the majority of the people in this room this evening, they heat their homes with natural gas. You may have a gas dryer, you may have a gas stove, you may have a gas water heater, you may even have a gas barbecue, and if you happen to have a pool, you may have a gas... The
town of Essex has announced the appointment of Tracy Phelan-Abbs as the new Chief Administrative Officer. Phelan-Abbs has a senior director role with the municipality of Leamington as Building, Fire Services, Planning, Recreation and Cultural Director. Phelan-Abbs has also worked as an economic development and brings more than 20 years' experience to the town of Essex. Essex Council was quoted as saying they are very happy and welcome Tracy Phelan-Abbs on board. Mayor Ron McDermott was quoted as saying, "We will certainly benefit from the strategic outlook and dedication to the town of Essex." And there was no shortage of action at Essex Town Council meeting Monday night, as Mayor Ron McDermott asked Council Randy Vokes to remove himself from the proceedings.
I will remind Council, and especially Councillor Vokes, you will not be recognized the next time unless you come through the chair. It's not me, it's the chair. We run this meeting through the chair. Now, how many times I must tell you, Councillor Vokes, that's the last time I'm going to allow you to speak to anyone unless you come through the chair. And whether it's me or someone else in the chair, you will come through the chair. I'm not listening to you, Councillor Vokes. Now, you are out of order, sir. And if you want to be removed, just say one more word because you are on notice. You know you get the... You're going to walk out right now, sir. I'm asking you to leave the meeting.
And here's Amy Goodman with your international news.
The U.S. Senate has failed to pass 4 separate measures aimed at curbing access to guns, just 8 days after a gunman massacred 49 people at a gay nightclub in Orlando, Florida. As families of people killed by gun violence watch from the Senate chamber, lawmakers voted down measures to block people on the federal terrorism watch list from buying guns and to close background check loopholes. Connecticut Democratic Senator Chris Murphy who staged a 15-hour filibuster last week to demand gun reform in the wake of the Orlando massacre, denounced the inaction.
And I believe that for all of the scarring psychological harm that comes with losing a loved one or a neighbor, more harm is piled on when you find out that the people that you elected to run your country just don't care. It hurts something awful when you lose someone, but it gets worse when your leaders are silent, are totally silent in the face of your personal horror.
Not one of the 4 failed gun measures would have reinstated an assault weapons ban that would have made it much more difficult for the gunman to get the gun he got in Florida, like the gun that was used in Sandy Hook or the gun that was used in the Aurora movie house in Colorado years ago. The FBI has released partial transcripts of conversations between the Orlando shooter and authorities during the attack. The transcripts show Omar Mateen pledging allegiance to ISIS and calling for the United States to stop bombing Iraq and Syria. The FBI initially redacted the name of ISIS and its leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, saying it, quote, did not want to provide the killer or terrorist organizations with a publicity platform for hateful propaganda, but it added the names to the transcript after a public outcry. Presumptive Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump has fired his campaign manager and is entering the general election campaign with what the New York Times calls the worst financial and organizational disadvantage of any major party nominee in recent history, unquote. At the beginning of the month, Donald Trump had just $1.3 million cash on hand, more than $41 million less than Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton. Clinton has nearly 700 staff members. Trump has about 70. Since May, when he secured the delegates needed to clinch the nomination, Trump's campaign has not aired a single TV ad, nor has it booked any advertising for summer or fall. Clinton and her supporters have spent nearly $26 million on advertising this month alone. Trump fired campaign manager Corey Lewandowski Monday amidst reports of tensions between Lewandowski and Trump's family and concerns over whether he could run a competitive race. Lewandowski was charged with battery in March after surveillance footage showed him grabbing reporter Michelle Fields. Fields said Lewandowski left bruises on her arm. The charges were later dropped. Lewandowski spoke after news of his firing on Monday.
I think, what has been clear from the get-go that my strategy has been, and at some level was successful, is let Trump be Trump. And you've got a person who has completely changed the way that politics is viewed in this country for the better. And you've got a thoroughbred, a person like Donald Trump who has had his heart and his finger on the pulse of the American people for a long time. And so, I like to say that I'm a person who's been able to help implement some of his ideas.
Trump parted ways with another high-level staffer Monday, Michael Caputo, who was set to serve as the campaign's communications director at the Republican convention, tweeted, "Ding dong, the witch is dead," following news of Lewandowski's ouster. Caputo later resigned, acknowledging, quote, "In hindsight, that was too exuberant a reaction to this personnel move." Apple has become the latest corporation to distance itself from Donald Trump, saying it will not provide any funding or resources to the Republican convention next month due to Trump's comments on Muslims, immigrants, and women. Among the other companies to curb or eliminate support are HP, Coca-Cola, and Microsoft. A British man has been arrested for attempting to grab a police officer's gun at a Trump rally in order to shoot Trump. Michael Stephen Sanford was arrested Saturday at the rally in Las Vegas and later told police he wanted to kill Trump. He had practiced shooting at a gun range for the first time a day earlier. Donald Trump, meanwhile, has backed away from his statement the victims of the Orlando massacre should have had guns. A day after the attack, Trump told radio host Howie Carr, quote, "It's too bad some of the young people that were killed over the weekend didn't have guns, attached to their hips where bullets could have flown in the opposite direction. It would have been a much different deal," Trump said. Even officials with the National Rifle Association distanced themselves from Trump's remarks. Lobbyist Chris Cox told ABC, quote, "No one thinks people should go into a nightclub drinking and carrying firearms," unquote. On Monday, Trump tweeted he was, quote, "obviously talking about additional guards or employees," unquote. Attacks on mosques in the United States have reached a record high. The Council on American Islamic Relations, known as CAIR, and UC Berkeley recorded 78 attacks on mosques last year, the highest since the monitoring began in 2009. CAIR's Corey Saylor outlined the findings.
The last time we had a really intense cycle of anti-mosque incidents was in 2010 during the national controversy over Park 51, the Ground Zero Mosque. That was characterized by attempts to stop mosque construction and expansion, what we call zoning incidents. This time around, it has a much more violent tenor to it, and we see a lot more acts of intimidation targeting mosques. Of those 78 incidents, 34 of them occurred in November and December of last year, which many of us consider to be one of the worst periods of anti-Islam sentiment.
The report also names 74 groups that continue that contribute to Islamophobia, including 33 core groups that had access to nearly $206 million in funding between 2008 and 2013. 3 New York City police commanders and a businessman have been arrested on federal corruption charges linked to an investigation into campaign fundraising for Mayor Bill de Blasio. Deputy Chief Michael Harrington and Deputy Inspector James Grant were accused of taking lavish gifts in exchange for political favors. U.S. Attorney for Manhattan, Preet Bharara, said Sergeant David Villanueva was charged in a scheme involving gun licenses.
David Villanueva, an NYPD sergeant and a supervisor in the licensing division, we allege, took bribes for years from Alex Lichtenstein, a so-called expediter, in exchange for pushing through gun license applications. Lichtenstein charged clients who wanted gun licenses upwards of $18,000, and he in turn gave Villanueva thousands of dollars.
In the southwestern United States, record-setting heat has killed at least 4 people, fueled more than a dozen wildfires. In Los Angeles, thousands lost power Monday as air conditioners overwhelmed the power grid. Outside Los Angeles, 2 massive wildfires blazed through at least 4,500 acres in the San Gabriel Mountains, forcing at least 750 people to evacuate. It was 118 degrees Fahrenheit in Phoenix, Arizona Sunday, a daily record. Last month was the hottest May ever recorded, the 13th straight month to set a new record amidst human-caused climate change. Federal and Mississippi state officials have closed the investigation into the 1964 killings of 3 civil rights volunteers by the Ku Klux Klan 52 years ago today. James Chaney, Andrew Goodman, and Mickey Schwerner had traveled to Mississippi to register black voters. They disappeared while investigating the burning of a black church. Their bodies were found more than 40 days later in an earthen dam. While several people were convicted of civil rights violations in 1967, it took more than 40 years to bring the lead perpetrator in their murders to justice. Edgar Ray Killen, the only suspect ever tried for murder in the case, was convicted in 2005 and is serving a 60-year sentence. A Justice Department report released Monday names 2 men who may still be culpable in the murders, but the state said evidence had been degraded by memory and the case is closed. The Supreme Court has ruled evidence of a crime can still be used in some cases, even if police obtained it illegally. While the 5-3 ruling deals a blow to civil rights in favor of police powers, it's likely to be remembered largely for the powerful dissent penned by Justice Sonia Sotomayor, the first Latina justice on the court. In a ruling that cited Michelle Alexander, James Baldwin, and Ta-Nehisi Coates, Judge Sotomayor wrote, quote, "It is no secret that people of color are disproportionate victims of police searches." She concluded her argument, quote, "By legitimizing the conduct that produces this double consciousness, this case tells everyone, white and black, guilty and innocent, that an officer can verify your legal status at any time. It says your body is subject to invasion while courts excuse the violation of your rights. It implies you're not a citizen of a democracy, but the subject of a carceral state, just waiting to be cataloged." Justice Sotomayor went on to write, quote, We must not pretend that the countless people who are routinely targeted by police are isolated. They are the canaries in the coal mine whose deaths, civil and literal, warn us that no one can breathe in this atmosphere. They are the ones who recognize that unlawful police stops corrode all our civil liberties and threaten all our lives. Until their voices matter too, our justice system will continue to be anything but. I dissent.
And here's your local forecast. Today, sunny, becoming cloudy this afternoon. Wind southwest at 20 kilometers an hour, high of 27. The humidity index is at 28 and the UV index at 7 or high, so be careful out there. Tonight, a few clouds, wind southwest at 20 kilometers an hour, becoming light this evening, a low of 17. On Wednesday, increasing cloudiness in the morning, a high of 25. Wednesday night, showers or thunderstorms, a low of 18. And looking into Thursday, a mix of sun and clouds, a high of 24. And Thursday night, clear with a low of 15.